I'm just getting off of this one.
It says it's live now. It says the broadcast is live. I saw.
Yeah.
Sorry about this,
Sorry,
everyone.
guys.
We've been talking with Nate for a while, and then all of a sudden I started looking at the chat and seeing everything that's going on. Very, very sorry about this, but thank you guys for coming, though, everyone. Really great to see you guys. Nate's a good guy, and so you know what? This has been a really good conversation. Nate, if you wouldn't mind starting from the beginning.
Yeah, I can do that. Are we good to go now? For sure. It looks
I
good.
wanted to interact on the chat tonight, but sorry, that's not going to work out. So I'm just going to listen to Nate and interact when I can. Go ahead,
It's all
Nate.
good. It's all good. Well, I'll just start over. So I really appreciate you guys asking me to come on, be your first guest and stuff. It's an honor, and always appreciate that. Jay, you were asking me how I got started, and I told you about growing up in the 70s and watching In Search Of with my dad and stuff like that. Being a kid in the 70s when the Patterson-Gimlin film was still fresh on everyone's mind. Back then it was something new and exciting and really grabbed my attention. And fast forward to marrying my wife in '93. Meeting my father-in-law, Dave. He was an outfitter and hunting guide for years. I want to say it was late 70s to early 80s era in that time frame. He was a hunting guide up at the North Fork of the Clearwater, which his spot was kind of, you go through Superior, Montana, head south over a pass. It drops you go about 6,000 feet up. It drops you back on the Idaho side. And that's kind of where that general area was. And, he had all kinds of stories about screams in the night and, footprints and horrible feelings, places they didn't even want to go through at night where they felt like they're being watched. And so he had a hunter that came in, I believe it was about 81. This is the big story that came out of there that was pretty shocking. This guy was a Vietnam vet. His name was Farrell. He came in around 81, I believe it was. And at this point, they'd been in there for quite a few years already in this hunting camp and had a lot of scary, eerie encounters. They'd hear stuff up across. There was a creek that separated their camp from this ridge, basically a big draw that ran up, going, I believe it would be south from their camp. And they'd hear a scream and a ruckus like you wouldn't believe, like breaking of trees and all kinds of stuff. And they'd hear it just crashing up the hill like it was pissed off, just as a little example, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And really super remote spot. They'd go on horseback, like I was telling you earlier. So you're not going to see people up here. You can't even drive a car to where I'm telling you about. It's a gated. It's not a gate you can open. It's a railroad tie bolted gate. It's the end of the line basically of an old logging road, where you can park your car and your trailers and stuff, and then take your horses up. So they'd go miles in that, past that. But there was this hunter came in. Sorry, I got sidetracked. His name was Farrell. He wanted to hunt in this. They called it Boogeyman Gulch. They actually named this draw Boogeyman Gulch because of all these, scary encounters and feelings and everything they had.
Mm-hmm.
And this Farrell wanted to go hunt back in there. And I guess Dave said, well, I guess you could, but we avoid there. He kind of told him what was going on and what had happened. And he goes, I'm not afraid of nothing, And so he ended up going in there and setting up in this draw. Above this draw, they were hunting elk. And at some point along the way, he started getting a horrible feeling. I don't know if it was dusk. I believe it was dusk when this happened. Had this horrible feeling, and he started to focus in down below on this big black stump, like huge black stump. And he just kept looking at it. He knew something wasn't right. And at some point after that, this stump stood up, screamed at him, took like 4 or 5 steps toward him, screamed again, just giant. And he lost it, just absolutely lost it. Jumped up, started running back towards camp. It's probably a good mile. And you got to realize this is super thick forest. There's deadfalls. It's not somewhere where you're going to want to get out in an emergency, honestly. You're going to snap an ankle or something. It's just super thick. So he started running back towards camp. There was an old tree stand that's still there. You can't climb in it anymore. It's all broken apart now, aged out. But he climbed up in this tree stand, started counting his bullets, and he realized he only had 4 or 5 bullets. and decided he wasn't going to sit there and stand off with this thing. And the whole time this thing's screaming, he can hear it crashing behind him, just breaking trees and screaming loud. And so he decided, he just took off back to camp, another half mile or whatever it was. And long story short, he took off. He left with his truck, and the rest of the hunters got back to my father-in-law after dark, because you usually come out after dark when you're hunting. And his truck was gone, and of course they were like worried about him, but they knew his truck was gone. And so Dave, after the hunt got over, they went back to town, and Dave hunted him down like a week later. And Dave said, "Farrell, what the hell happened? We're worried about you. What happened? Do you have an emergency?" And so he proceeded to tell Dave the story that he was sitting there and he saw this, what he thought was a big giant black stump. And he was, "Dave, I thought it was going to kill me. I thought I was going to die, and I'll never go back there."
That's hard to tell people that. That's hard
Yeah.
when you see these kinds of things. It's hard to find someone to tell that to.
Oh, Dave said he was shaking the whole time he was telling them. I can't imagine, but to hear Dave tell that story, it's probably better than I tell it. I'm telling it secondhand, but it's all true.
Mhm.
I may be missing little details and stuff, but to hear Dave tell it, it's pretty incredible. And so that was the big story that came out of that area. And so I guess where I was going with this is that's how I got reintroduced to this field and subject. So like I said earlier, at some point we were watching the shows. I kind of got reinterested in it. This is probably 8 years ago now. We've been in this about 8 years, where we've got the group now and stuff.
Mhm.
But I was doing some research, right? I was getting interested in it again. And I realized how many reports and sightings are up here in the Northwest. I mean, just in my area of Northeast Washington and Northwest Idaho, and then you go up and you're in British Columbia. We're right up by the border. It just, there's hundreds of reports, hundreds of sightings. I mean, there's got to be, I hear some of these researchers say there might be 8,000 of these things in North America or United
I know.
States.
All right.
I know.
I think there's 8,000 in Washington.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I
Yeah.
agree. I'd have to agree.
There's so many more than they say there is or they think there is. There's just too many sightings. There's literally tens of thousands of sightings across the U.S. and almost every state but Hawaii, right? So anyways, I was doing some research online and found, of course, I went to the BFRO just because that's the only place I knew of at the time. And, there's a lot of stuff on there, probably more that they're not showing us.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe up in my area here how many reports there were. And so that really got me going on it. And so we were up at the lake. I was telling you, up at Priest Lake. My father-in-law has a cabin up there. This is about 8 years ago. And Chris, my brother-in-law Chris, my wife's little brother, we were sitting on the deck by the lake. It got dark, a little bit later in the night. Everyone else went in the cabin. We were sitting out there, had a couple beers, nothing crazy. And, we were watching the shows at that time. That was kind of when the shows were getting popular on TV. You're seeing a lot of Bigfoot shows on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all there really was out there other than what you find on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I looked at Chris, I think it was about 10:30, and I said, "Hey, Chris, why don't we go on a night hike and look for Bigfoot?" And he kind of chuckled, and I don't think he thought I was serious. I was. But like I was saying earlier, we're hunters, we're outdoorsmen, we're in the woods all the time. But we generally don't go hiking at night. That's not something, you do as a hunter unless you're coming out at night from your hunting spot.
Right.
So he said, "Yeah, let's do it. What the heck?" We weren't tired or anything. And we grabbed our bags. We always have our gear with us and guns and all that stuff because we'll go on hikes and stuff. And this was summertime, by the way. I think it was June or July. And we grabbed our stuff, threw it in the car, drove up there around the lake. It's about a 40-minute drive to get to the other side of the lake. And we went to this place where we'd been in the daytime before, but never at night. It's called the Ancient Cedar Groves. It's actually called the Roosevelt Groves National Forest or National Park. And it was founded by Teddy Roosevelt in the early 1900s. There's a grove of ancient cedar trees in there that are like, some are like 2,000 years old. They're just huge, gigantic. And so that's where we decided to go because it just came to our mind, I guess, that night. And so we got up there about, we left about probably 10:45, probably 11:30-ish, got up there, and there's a little parking lot at the bottom. So there was no cars there at all. This is pretty remote. It's up by the Canada border up there. And we knew there was no other humans there because there's no cars. You know, it's a drive to get up there. It really is. It's north of Priest. It's even further up north there. And so we jumped out, grabbed our gear, started to hike up the trail. It's a good probably 2-mile hike to get in there, maybe 1.5 miles uphill. So we did that. About halfway up, we got this rock thrown at us, out of nowhere. We heard this rock coming flying across the front of us, landed actually right on the trail in front of us. Big thud. Sounded like a big rock. Of course, it's dark. We couldn't see the rock. We heard it hit and then roll, went thud and then do down the hill. And we froze. We were pretty scared, I guess. And I remember standing there in the dark. It was pitch black. And I remember hearing Chris rack around in his pistol. That's all I could hear. I just remember that distinctly. And it came from our right. There was a hill to our right, and then the hill went down to our left. And I just remember staring into the dark, looking up, and just waiting to hear something. You think you spook a elk or a deer or an animal or something, but we never heard anything run away. It was just a rock coming through and landing and rolling down the hill. So this is our first time ever out. And
is this your first time where you're actually going out to find?
Yeah, and
okay.
And we didn't even know what we're doing. Obviously, Jay. We just kind of half goofing off, saying, "Hey, let's go out and look for Bigfoot." Who does that really? Obviously a lot of people do it, but we didn't know it at the time, and we just seen the shows and stuff. And so we stood there a little bit, pretty scared because like I said, we're in grizzly country. There's a lot of threats out there from predators and stuff. You really got to be, it's probably not real smart to go hiking at night up there, but we did it. And anyway, so we pushed through that and we hiked the rest of the way in, and it kind of drops down in this old ancient cedar grove. It's kind of like a draw, but it drops down and gets flat, and there's all the ancient cedars down in there. And we went all the way in. We pushed through that rock throw, just thinking how weird that was. You're kind of in shock. It's like, because your brain tries to debunk it, and I honestly couldn't debunk it. Something threw a rock at us. We know that for sure, and we know there were no other humans up there. And like I said, super remote spot. So we went down there, sat down on a log. I remember sitting on a log down in there, and I eventually let out a scream, my first scream I probably ever did, or call, or whatever you want to call it. And I have this scream. I've kind of refined it over the years, but I have this scream that kind of sounds like a blood curdling lady scream, I guess you could say. That's the best way I could describe it. I probably felt silly doing it, the first time, but I let out a scream, and sure enough, we heard in the distance, we heard a scream. Something answered us. And then right after that scream, it sounded like, I pictured it in my head as something grabbing a big tree and just exploding it against another tree. It was the loudest explosion. I can't even describe it. It was so loud. It was pretty close. It had to have been. And we were just our jaws were dropped and holy crap, is this stuff real? I don't know how to explain it, to be honest with you. Those are just two
things.
First time
we ever heard a whoop. First time we ever heard a whoop, we were just like, that's just right off of, things we've heard on those shows and stuff. You hear this whoop, whoop.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? So when you have stuff like this happen to you, it becomes real very fast,
Yes.
And it became real to us that night, even though we didn't see anything. And honestly,
occasionally while you're talking, I'm going to kind of monitor chat a little bit. If I'm not looking at you, I'm listening. It's we got a lot of positivity going on tonight, and people are telling my wife how pretty she is and things. I appreciate that, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Quit flirting with my wife out there, you guys.
I'm blind and I can't even see what's happening over there.
I'm really happy to hear this, Nate. You came recommended, by my closest friend, and part of what this channel is going to feature in the future is our Northwest researchers, and I thought you would be the best way to kick this off. So I appreciate this. You just keep talking, buddy, and I appreciate it, guys. If you don't hear me talking, it's because I want to listen to him. So if you have a question at any time, pop it up and we'll ask it. Okay. Thank you.
So honestly, we were pretty freaked out, really. It's our first time out. We have this stuff happen. Okay. Pretty major stuff, really, So we hightailed it out of there. We said, it's time to go. This isn't, we both got kind of a bad feeling, and we had to hike all the way back out of there. And it's probably 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, to get back down to the car. And so we got out of it. And yeah, we're just our heads
Is it-
on a swivel.
Is that not a dreadful thing? Is that not a dreadful thing when
Oh.
you're like, I'm not just 20 feet away. I've got this hike and it's dark. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I want to do a long hike, but that's where it gets me.
I'll tell you what,
not being
we
right
got
next to my car.
we got down that trail probably twice as fast as we got up it. I can tell you that much. So that was our first time out. So that basically we were hooked at that point. And that was my brother-in-law Chris. And of course we went back. And the next day I remember telling my son what happened. And he was watching the shows with me, interested, and he'd heard all those stories from my father-in-law up where the hunting camp was all those years. And so he was like, no way, and I go, yeah, we got to do this more often. This is legit. And we had something happen. How cool is that? And so we ended up making a yearly trip out of the hunting camp spot I was telling you about up in the North Fork of the Clearwater. We go there every year. We couldn't go this year because there was a big fire up there, but so the first year we did it must have been that next summer, maybe we did that trip up to the Clearwater. My son went with us. I think it was his first time out with us doing this. And I'll try to be quick on this one. We went up where I told you that bolted gate was. We went past that and did a night hike up there. So it must have been 10:30, 11 at night, way up there. And we weren't getting much this particular night, but we were going to leave. And I said, well, hey, let me let out a scream just as a last ditch effort, see what happens. And they go, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. So I let out a scream and I got a whoop back. And it was right across the draw, right across on that ridge where all those stories came from I told you about, where the hunter got chased out, where my father-in-law had all the experiences. It was a whoop. So I did it. I did my blood curdling scream. And this was probably 11:30, 12 at night. And we've got this, I've got this idea and it's worked quite a bit for us, especially in this area I'm telling you about in the North Fork, where if you go into an area late at night and you're quiet for a couple hours and it gets late into the night and you let out a scream and these are remote spots. I know I keep saying that, but it's important for people to know how remote these are. There's no other people around. You can't even camp. I mean, you could hike in and camp or something, but
yeah.
You let out a scream late at night. And a lot of times you'll get an answer. You'll take them off guard, I think, is what happens. And when you're in a super remote spot like that, they're not used to hearing that. I mean, we're probably the only people up there that have ever done that, And so we get a lot of callbacks up there, which is really cool. We've recorded some and stuff. But this particular time was super cool because it was our first year. About 7 years ago, we went up there and I took my son. And so it was me and my brother-in-law, Chris, and my son, Corey. And I did the scream and got the whoop back. It was your classic whoop. And we just looked at each other and we knew exactly where it came from, right? Where all those stories were. So it validated, but that's not the end of it. So I decided to whoop back. Like I tried to copy the whoop and I did. I whooped back at it. It whooped back at me. We did back and forth 4 times.
Oh, wow.
It whooped back to me 4 times. And then we tried a 5th and it didn't do nothing. It was on to us, I think.
What tone of voice were you using? I want this to be about you, but our mutual friend Grant Sill was up at our camp last year, and his daughter Brooke, every time she whooped, she used her 14-year-old girl voice. She got one back right off the ridge almost immediately, like 4 times, I think.
There you go.
I don't know what's up with that 5, but 4 times.
That's okay. That's cool to hear. Yeah. No, we were in shock, and Corey was his first time going with us. And Corey I can't repeat what he said. My son's 28, but he goes, it just became real for him too. And when you have something answering you back like that, and there's no other people anywhere, I mean, you're so remote. I mean, it blows you away. There's just, when you realize that there's something in our woods that they're hiding from us, they're not telling us about.
Yeah.
And it's real. It's real. I mean, it changes your whole life. And for us, it's like that pursuit to, like you said earlier, Jay, to find the truth. We just want to know what they are, how long, they've been here for, I think, thousands of years. I think they've been here as long as we have. Yeah. And I don't think they're an ape or a monkey. We can get into that later if you want.
I think they're more, bro.
I think they're more human. I believe in Melba Ketchum's study. I believe in the Native Americans, all their stories and legends. They didn't think they were an ape or an animal. They all had names for them. They were all different, but they all kind of meant the same thing. Hairy man, wild man, Indian devil, they thought of them as another tribe, another race of people. And that's where I stand on it. I think they're more like us than an animal. And let's see. Yeah, I mean, so that was our first time up there as a trip. We do that every year, and that happened. And, it's been amazing. And then I've had a lot of other encounters since then. That was about 7 years ago, but kind of lost my train of thought there. I wasn't sure where I was going with this, but yeah, they're, I guess when you it just sucks you in when you realize that these things are real, and they're out there. And to me, it kind of pisses me off, or the Department of the Interior and Park Service, and they're all covering this up, and our government, if you want to call it our government or whatever. But, I think people deserve to know. It's just like any other predators, so you can be prepared. And when you take your family and your little kids out there, and I just think people deserve to know, and they're not telling us, they're hiding it from us. And there must be some big reason, I'm not sure what it is. I got some ideas, but I think it changes our history. It changes everything we've been taught about evolution. I mean,
Right.
It could be biblical. No, I don't have a lot of answers, but I know what it's not. And I'm pretty positive about that. And so, yeah, I'm just looking for answers too, Jay. I just want to find the truth.
We have a question from Kaja Ninja. Has Nate heard them talk or chatter?
Yes, we have a couple of times, only a couple of times, but I heard, so this was one of our early trips too, and this was up, I'll just tell you where it was at. It was Sullivan Creek, so it's north of Sullivan Lake, Washington. Again, it's up by the Canadian border. It's more on the Washington side than, it's a little bit further from Idaho than where I've been talking about. But this is a grizzly recovery area. There's a lot of border patrol up there. It's right on the border, but so we went up, Chris and I, this was a weekend. It was just me and him. I'll just try to tell the story as quick as I can. We found a really nice place by the creek to camp. Heard some tree knocks that night. Maybe our first night, heard a couple tree knocks, late at night. There wasn't anybody close to us that we knew of. We found this spot. It's a pretty big creek at the time, rushing pretty good. We found this spot where we could cross the creek where this big old tree had fallen across. So we could walk across and get to access the other side, which you couldn't drive to. There's no way to get over there with a car. It's another big ridge on the other side of the creek. And so we did a night hike. We crossed that creek. I think it was the second night we were there. And we hiked up the creek away from camp. And at the time, I didn't realize how far we'd hiked. It was dark. Or no, maybe it wasn't quite dark when we hiked in there. But still, I didn't realize how far we'd gone. And we hiked up in there, sat down. I don't do a lot of knocks and stuff anymore. I used to do, I'll still do a call every now and then because I know they work, like we were talking earlier.
She won't let me. She won't let anybody.
Well, my wife, if I'm with my wife, she won't let me either because she knows. My wife grew up with all those stories from my father-in-law being his daughter. And she found a bed up there once. I'm not trying to get sidetracked here, but she found what's called a bed, and she knew nothing about Sasquatch. So for her to find something, she said it looked like a bed up in that remote spot. It's pretty cool. So yeah, she won't let me do any calls either. But anyways, so we hiked up the creek. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. We sat there for a couple hours, did a couple calls, maybe hit a tree a couple times. I don't think we got anything up until all of a sudden I heard what I thought was talking in the woods. And I couldn't make out what it was, but it sounded to me like a woman talking. And I remember looking at Chris. He was sitting behind me over to my left on another log. And I'm like, Chris, there's a lady in our camp. That's the first thing my head went to, my brain. I said, there's a lady talking in our camp. I could hear, to me, it sounded like a lady talking. I couldn't make out words. I don't remember being able to hear any words. Just to me, it sounded like a lady talking. So all of a sudden I kind of freaked out. And I'm like, Chris, we got to get back to camp. There's someone in our camp. And so we did. We got up. It was kind of late anyways, maybe 10:30, 11. And I mean, who goes into your camp at night? That doesn't ever happen. It'd be a pretty stupid person to do that. But so we got up. We started back down the creek. And I'm like, how far did we go? I couldn't believe we ended up going about 100 yards. And I didn't realize that. Right. We hiked in up the other way and came back the opposite. Yeah. And at some point I just remember thinking, God, how far did we go? And then come to find out, we would have never heard anybody in our camp. I mean, it was too far and there was a creek between us. And so, yeah, I heard that talking and it sounded like a woman talking. And then since then, my son heard it. He called it gibberish up at the same spot, Sullivan Creek. And this was a different camp spot, but pretty close by there. And that night, I know I'm skipping around a little here. That night, it was just me and my son on a weekend trip. We're kind of weekend warriors. We all work full time and stuff, so we just try to get in weekends when we can. And
Same here.
Yep.
it's better to have, I think it's better to have a week, like we do a couple trips where it's a week and those are better because I think a lot of times you won't see anything or hear anything for a couple days. They'll watch you for a couple days, but then things will start to happen usually, if you're in a good spot and they're around. But, so this one night we were up there on a weekend with my son and we both have 2-man tents. So I always put him behind me just so I know the direction he's in case we're in bear country and I have to shoot through the tent or, I don't want to be shooting at him or anything like that. So that's kind of the idea behind that. But he was right behind me in another tent, just a little tent. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't even tell you what time it was. And I knew something was wrong. I just had this feeling of maybe a little bit of dread and just I knew something was off. And I tried to lift my head up to call out to Corey just to check on him, see if he was okay. And I couldn't talk. I was like frozen. I was like paralyzed. And I was trying to call out to him and I couldn't. And I finally just went back to sleep. I know that sounds stupid. I kind of gave up, went back to sleep. And so, but where I'm going with this, so we rolled out of the tents the next morning and Corey said, before I even told him what happened to me, where I kind of got paralyzed, I couldn't call out to him. He goes, Dad, something really weird happened last night. I'm like, oh, what? And I hadn't said a word. And he goes, I heard gibberish out. I heard like mumbling outside the tent. Someone was out here talking, but I couldn't make out what it was saying. So he heard it, Unfortunately, we didn't have a recorder going or anything, so we didn't record it. But yeah, we have heard that a couple times.
Yeah.
Do you think you had sleep paralysis? You think that night?
Well, I don't know. I suppose it's possible, Jan. I don't remember ever having it before. And I've heard about them zapping people and stuff, and I don't know if that's what it was, but I'm telling you the truth. I could not speak out. I could not shout out. I was awake. I know I was awake. I was looking at my tent, and I just couldn't look back and shout out to my son. So I don't really know how to explain that. I don't know if it was Sasquatch but I've never had sleep paralysis that I can remember before that, and never since. So that was weird. And then putting those two together where he heard the mumbling and stuff. I don't know if it was connected, but just weird. We just have weird stuff like that happen, stuff that's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Or you can't really explain it.
What we heard when we were up at our spot, when, that we had our encounter that weekend and all that was, when deaf people are talking, I have a lot of deaf people where I work and they make those sounds while they're doing their sign language to each other.
Yeah.
When they're trying to talk to us, that's exactly what we heard out there was that, but you could hear female type of voices going off too. Like you got a neighbor a block away yelling at her kids or something. You can't really tell, but you can hear it. You can't make out the words, but you can hear it. So
yeah.
Is that what you may have heard?
That's kind of what we think we heard. Yeah. I think it's another language, or they have their own language, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, we couldn't make it out. We just knew there was, like, when I heard that, what I thought was a lady talking, it was just, I knew it was, my brain went to a lady's voice. That's what it sounded like. So we have heard that a couple times. Yeah.
Have you seen any? Grant wants to know if you've seen any. Did you see orbs or lights?
I haven't. Personally, I have not. I've heard a lot about those, and my brother-in-law photographed one up at Priest a few years back, a couple times. He saw one, but no, I have not seen one. No, I'd kind of like to. I heard you're not supposed to follow them though.
I don't know.
Don't know
I saw
either.
one, but I'm pretty much convinced it had something to do with some sort of lightning ball or something.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people connect a lot of people that have sightings say they saw lights in the woods too, like either before or right after. So, I mean, there's a lot of reports out there like that, but I haven't personally, no. So
let me tell you something. This is very important. You'll learn to with Leon from Bigfoot Okanagan. He is really good at this. he helped me get through some great trauma from our encounter. But he says the first motor function one can lose in stress is inability for movement or speech.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so that's important to keep that note too.
No kidding. Yeah. It kind of makes sense. Yeah. I don't know what happened to me there, but I'm being honest with you. And I mean, I don't know how to explain. It never happened. We were in the woods in a Bigfoot hotspot and it happened to me, you know?
Yeah.
And I know it sounds dumb. I kind of gave up. I was struggling to speak out to Corey, and I didn't hear him yelling or anything. So I think at some point I was so tired, you know, we'd been staying up late and all that.
Well,
So
part of seeking truth is telling the truth. So I think that, you know, you're doing just fine, man. Your stories are
well, there's
really
some things that have happened to me that I just don't know how to explain. And sometimes it's hard to try to explain it to people, but
yeah.
you know, it's kind of things where you had to be there, you know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing these things already is screwed up enough. So that's, you know, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and then I had my big experience was hunting camp in 2017. That's kind of where it really changed my thought process about them. I think they have special abilities. Somehow they're really good at hiding from us. I don't know if they cloak or, you know, I really don't know. I don't really want to go there, but I'm open-minded. I'm pretty open-minded about things. I don't rule anything out unless I think it's absolutely nuts or crazy. But, you know, it's so many people have all these different experiences and it's hard to discount. You kind of got to take it in and weed through it. But when you have stuff like this happen to you, it's like you just can't explain it.
yeah.
Yeah, so we had this encounter in hunting camp, 2017. My buddy Rob and I, we go hunting every year. Same area, usually the same spot, same exact spot, but sometimes we have to go to a different spot if someone's in that spot. But we take a week off work. It's a whole week hunting camp up there. It's third week. the third week of October. We do this every year. We've been doing it about 7 years together. We've been hunting longer than that together, but this particular trip about 7 years. And my buddy Rob was a big skeptic up to this point. I got to say that right off the bat. He didn't believe, you know, he'd kind of chuckle at me when I talked about it. And I don't talk to everyone about it. You know, I talk to my buddies a little bit and I won't even bring it up unless maybe someone else does or, you know, I've gotten to the point now where if I have friends or people I know, or maybe even people I don't know that I learn are hunters that have been hunters for years or outdoorsmen for years, I'll sometimes pop the question, but I won't say, hey, have you ever seen a Bigfoot? I'll say, hey, can I ask you a weird question? And, you know, I just kind of feel it out, but you'd be surprised at how many people have come forward. Like I'll just say, hey, have you ever had anything weird happen in the woods? You're out there all the time in remote spots. And they'll get wide eyes and they'll go, well, yeah, and they'll start to tell you stuff, right? They're just people that don't want to talk about it because they think they'll be called crazy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I've gotten a lot of reports that way. And I mean, maybe in a few minutes here, I'll tell you a story about a buddy I ran into I hadn't seen in years. And he watched one for 5 minutes and told me all about it. Said I was the first guy he'd ever told. He didn't even tell his family about it. Yeah. I actually have a couple stories like that, but back to our hunting camp. So we set up camp. It's my buddy Rob has a big canvas tent. You know, lots of room to put your gear and all that in there. And it's a good couple hours to set up camp. And I always like to start out our trips with, not lately, but in the past with like a couple knocks or a scream or something. Cause you never know what you're going to get. A lot of times you'll be surprised, you know? So I think I hit a tree a couple times that first night. Or that first day when we got there. Nothing happened. We didn't hear anything. But so we went out. Let's see. We got there, set up camp. We went out hunting that evening till dark. Nothing happened the first night. We came back, got up early to hunt the next morning. I'm trying to remember if it was the second or third day. Anyways, we were there for like 6 days. So the first thing that happened that was weird is we'd been out hunting. We came back for lunch that day. I think it was the second day. And I wish I had pictures here so your audience could see them. But we came back to our hunting camp. There's a little entrance to our camp where you had to drive down to get through the trees. And there was this probably 15, 20-foot sapling, probably, 3 inches in diameter tree laid across the entrance to our camp. I don't know if you've seen these pictures, Jay, but
I have. That's why I wanted to get a hold of you.
yeah. So it was laying across the entrance to our camp, and I had a side-by-side at the time. So we just got back, to go to our camp. We drove in there. This thing's laying across the little entrance, and I stopped the rig, and my buddy Rob he looked at me, he goes, "That wasn't there when we left." And I go, "No, it wasn't. That wasn't there." And so we stopped the vehicle. I hopped out, went over to the tree, and we're just like, this is weird. We just thought it was totally weird. I wasn't even thinking Sasquatch at the time. And I picked the thing up, and it's heavy. It had a big root ball, like probably about this big. I don't know if you can, hard to tell on the screen, but if you saw the pictures, you'd realize it was a heavy, big old root ball. The minute I picked it up, all the dirt fell off on a pile, below the tree where I was standing. And the first thing I realized is if someone had drugged that thing in, there'd be a trail of dirt all the way behind it. Right. Because that was all loose dirt, And then you start to think about what kind of strength would it take to pull this tree out of the ground, root ball and all. And so we were scratching our heads, and we spent about 30 minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes looking in both tree lines on each side of this entrance to our camp. Because we were like, where'd this tree come from? Something picked that thing or pulled it out of the ground, picked it up, brought it in and set it down. That's the only explanation we could come up with, because there was no dirt drag mark. And like I said, when I picked it up, all that dirt fell off. So if you were to drug it, it would have had a trail of dirt behind it. And there was nothing. And we could never find a hole, or we checked both tree lines where that tree came from. We couldn't find where it came from. Wow. So something brought it in. But we thought it was kind of funny because, that's not going to keep us out of our camp. Just a sapling, So we just, set it aside and kind of just went on our business. Like we thought, well, that's weird. Chalked it up to being weird. And then that night, I remember that's when the tree knocks started. And they were kind of distant at first, but there was across the field. Now, this is 2017, so this is only about, 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And so I'd already been doing the Bigfoot thing for a while. So after a while, when I start hearing knocks, I'm thinking Sasquatch, what else does that in the middle of the night? And we're hearing distant knocks, and one would answer in the next tree line over, and they weren't really waking us up, but we hear them. Mm-hmm. And so I started to talk to Rob, my buddy, about it. And like I said, he's a big skeptic, and he's like, "That's weird." He kept saying that's weird the whole time. And so we heard some knocks that night, went to bed. So I guess I'm going on the third day. Oh, we set up some game cams. I got to stop right here, because a lot of times I get too far into the story and I have to back up. Yeah. So we always have a bunch of game cams with us. We put one behind the tent, one in the middle of camp. Keep that in mind. I'll come back to that. And so we went out, hunted that next morning, and we stayed out all day that day. We didn't come back for lunch. We took food and a cooler and everything with us. Came back after dark. I think it was the third night. And we drove down that little entrance to our camp, and right to my left, the camp table was over here. Our tent was over here on this side. And right away, I caught my eye, this big tree, probably a 25, 30-foot fresh, I guess it was a pine tree of some kind, pushed over right in the middle of camp. I've got pictures of that too, Jay.
Yep, I've seen it.
And, it was dark. So we got some cool pictures of me hitting it with the flashlight as we're driving in. Rob must have took some pictures. It wasn't me, I know that. But, and then, we were just, by this time I'm thinking, it almost hit the camp table. Right in the middle of camp. So I'm kind of getting concerned about this, hearing the knocks and knowing what I know already with the, quite a few years that I'd been doing it. But we're in hunting mode. We're not, I didn't bring any equipment with me to investigate Sasquatch or anything. So we woke up the next morning, took some more pictures of it, and the tree, that big tree, was snapped off right at the roots. I took some good pictures of how it was it looks like something just pushed it over and it snapped, and the roots pulled away from each other. It was a fresh tree, totally green tree, pushed over right in camp when we were gone. Something was trying to send us a message. Yeah. And then from that point on, the knocks started ramping up to where they got a lot louder, a lot more frequent. Like I'm talking 2, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, waking us up out of our sleep like multiple times per night. And it got so bad to where it was right behind our tent. And I mean, you know how, I don't know if you've heard them that loud, but I mean, just right behind the tent. And man, talk about sit up in your sleep. And multiple times during that, 5 or 6 days, we'd run out of the tent, kind of do the Lethal Weapon. Okay, 1, 2, 3, zip, we threw our pants on and everything, zip up the tent, run out, go opposite directions with our guns. We have big, powerful flashlights. And it was really creepy because we never heard anything running away. We never saw anything. I don't know if they were just out of sight or just hiding good enough or what, but we did that a few nights. And, the knocks were they were pretty intense, just loud and close right behind the tent, waking us up. And then I guess the thing that, by the way, so I got to go back to game cams now. We, after that big tree was pushed over, the next day, we realized that we had a game cam that should have picked that tree getting pushed up over. It was kind of, kitty corner to where the tree was pushed over. Mm-hmm. And so my buddy Rob went over, it was his game cam to check it. And I remember him walking over there, and I remember him looking at it, and he goes, "Nate, you're not going to believe this." I go, "What?" Well, there was a dead moth placed backwards over the eye of the camera. It kind of squished on the eye of the camera. So it didn't get the tree. It was like just black pictures. I mean, it didn't, there was nothing there. And then I'll come back to the other game cam behind the tent.
So like a moth was landed on a finger like this and something went like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So it was literally a moth placed backwards, dead, and it's kind of squished on the lens to cover the eye of the camera. And we didn't have a picture of anything coming up. You think you'd see something. I mean, it wasn't a moth that landed there and died. It was kind of squished on there.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And so the thing that kind of really changed the whole, we're powering through this, we're actually pretty stressed out, lack of sleep, because we're getting woke up multiple times per night. We powered through all the knocks and all that. But the thing that kind of made us reevaluate everything was, like, I want to say at the 5th or 6th night. Usually this is a Saturday to Saturday trip, but we ended up leaving a night early or a day early because we were just so stressed out and tired. It was the last night we were there. I remember waking up hearing this deep, loud growl behind my head on my corner of the tent, outside the tent. I mean, just a deep, guttural, loud growl. And I woke up, and at first I thought, well, maybe I dreamed it. So I wanted to just lay there and make sure I heard it, And it happened again right away, like deep, loud. And Rob didn't wake up. I woke him up. I'm like, Rob. So this whole week we're waking each other up. Nate, wake up. Rob, wake up. Because the knocks and all that. So we did that the whole week. But I woke him up, and it happened 2 more times. So he heard 2 growls also. It happened like 4 times.
Wow.
And so we're like, holy crap. What are we going to do? So we'd already been, having to get up and look around outside the tent, a couple times. And I go, we got to get our pants on and go out there and figure this out, So we did. It probably took us a minute to get our pants on and grab our guns and everything. And we just zipped up the tent again, went out, circled the tent. Nothing at all. Didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. But the growls kind of changed everything to me anyways. It seemed like it got more aggressive, when you're hearing growls like that. And long story short, well, at some point I looked to him and I go, hey, we stayed that night. That was late at night. I don't know what time it was, but we went back to bed after that, slept the rest of didn't sleep much probably. But I go, hey, the next morning I go, Rob, we got to make a decision here. Are we going to stick it out for the last night, or are we going to take off? And my father-in-law has the place, the priest I was telling you about. It's only about a half-hour drive. We're on the Washington side hunting because we live in Washington.
Yeah.
But it's only 7 miles from the border. You drive 7 miles west and you're in Washington. So, knowing that my father-in-law had the lake place, I was like, we could just go and get some sleep. I'm so tired. And we were stressed out, freaked out from everything. And so we did decide to do that. We decided to leave and go get some sleep. And, but before we left, my buddy Rob turned his lantern on, low setting, and stuck it in the tent. And we zipped up the tent really tight. We always zip the tent real tight because there was mice running around in camp. We didn't want them in our tent. And after we went and got a good night's sleep, we went to the cabin. We came back, and that tent was zipped up 8 inches. And of course, the lantern was still on. So something had come in that night we left, and we're at the cabin and zipped up the tent about 8-9 inches. I took
I
pictures
saw
of
that picture. That gave me the creeps.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. So they were there for multiple nights. They wanted us to leave. You could feel the pressure, and it got worse every night.
yeah.
Um,
Yep.
And the growls, it's like, looking back on it, I kind of wish we would have stayed that last night now, but I don't know what would happen. I mean, did we? At some point, you got to listen to your gut, I think.
Yep.
And,
Oh, I agree.
I always want to push the envelope as much as I can, but you always second guess and you look back on things and say, maybe we should have stayed that last night, but maybe something bad would have happened too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I hope
It's
I
good that
relayed
you had that great
Yeah.
escape. So
Yeah. So that other game cam was behind the tent, and honestly, Jay, it was right where it would have caught whatever was growling behind my head. And we did get pictures, but they were just milky white. Like we got a bunch of white pictures, like 20 of them. And all I can describe them as is like a milky white, kind of like ghostly swirls. And yeah, so it just,
Kaedio Ninja about 20 minutes ago asked if you had seen anything like that on your game cam. So that's interesting that he would ask that.
so yeah, we got, those pictures that they're just white pictures.
Huh.
And so I don't know. We think they have a way of manipulating cameras and stuff. And I don't know how to explain it, but the moth over the one, and then, the camera went off multiple times behind the tent, and it should have got whatever was growling. It was pointed. I mean, it was right above where I was sleeping.
Yeah.
So, and it went off before. We had other pictures. If you go back and look through the pictures, you see a squirrel or something would set it off. It took pictures like to the point where we set it up behind the tent. It got some regular pictures, but after that night, they were just all these milky white pictures. It was really weird.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my hunting camp experience, and that, like I said, it kind of changed. It kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It just they have these abilities that we don't understand, and it just really changed the way I think about it. They're not just up to that point. Maybe I thought they were a undiscovered ape or something. I don't know, but I mean, it's just it really changes the way you look at it.
Yeah, I don't
like that.
consider them paranormal in any way, shape, or form. I just think they have abilities so far that we just haven't put our finger on it. I mean, that's my
and paranormal. That means just it's not normal, right? So I mean, they have these abilities that aren't normal. I'm not saying supernatural or anything, but I don't know. I don't know if they're just they sure hide well.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I mean, we know they. Well, there's been, people can have had them in pictures right behind them. You can see a face or whatever. I'm not talking about the blurry ones where they circle and do all that, but they've been caught where they're standing behind someone. You don't know they're there. If you just look around, you're not going to see them. They blend in so well.
No, I saw the picture you took of your son 20 years ago or whatever. And then,
yeah.
Yes, tell us about that.
Okay, yeah. So this is a cool story. I didn't know about I knew we had pictures from that trip. So I was telling you about my father-in-law, the hunting guide up in the Clearwater. So my first time up there was in my son was born in 93. So he was about 2 or 3 years old. So this was probably like 95 or 96. And it was the first time I went up there. I'd heard these stories and stuff, and Dave invited us to go up just for a camping trip, like a weekend camp, maybe a long weekend. Mm-hmm. And we went up there, and my son was just a little guy, a little toddler. And, I don't remember anything weird happening at all that weekend. Of course, my mind wasn't on like it is nowadays where I'd be looking for that. But so my wife took a bunch of pictures of my son down by the creek. And I got to tell you this, where these pictures were taken is the bottom of that draw I was telling you about where the hunter got chased out. Yeah, this whole area is right there at the hunting camp. And so a few years ago, I knew I had those pictures. And, back in the early 90s, it was those disposable cameras. You had to take them into Walmart or whatever and get them developed. You get an envelope full of pictures. Yeah. Well, we had a bin because we used to take a lot of pictures, especially when your kids are little. Excuse me. We had this bin. I knew we had it, and I hadn't been through it in years. And I knew we had pictures from that trip. And something went off in my brain about, hey, I should look for those pictures and send them to Corey because it would have been his first trip to this spot where we go every year now for our big Sasquatch trip. And I went through the basement, dug through some stuff, found them, but it took me a long time because it was a whole bin full of those pouches. I found the pictures, and I didn't see it. This is pretty cool. So I started taking pictures with my cell phone of the old pictures, right? Because that's the only way I could do it. And I took a whole series of pictures of all these, but there was a series of pictures of maybe like 6 or 7 of my son down by the creek, you know, and you could see bushes and stuff behind him and, you know, thick bushes. And I started sending to my son, I go, hey, this is your first trip to Boogeyman. You're about 3 years old or whatever. And about 10 minutes went by and all of a sudden my phone started going off. He's like, Dad, what's that behind me? And he ended up circling, you know, something behind him in the bushes. And Jay, you've seen the pictures. I mean,
yes, I have.
You know, they're old. Now they're old pictures. You got to remember they're, you know, I don't know how many pixels or whatever, but they're the old photos. So they're not digital. They're not going to be good quality. But for as old as those pictures are, I started once he showed me what he saw, he circled it. I was like, oh, I'll be damned. I think it is, you know, and so I started zooming in on him with my camera and taking more pictures and zooming in on the face. And sure enough, you can see the nostrils. You can see 2 eyes, the nostrils. It looks like it's leaning back like this, trying not to be seen, you know, in those bushes. And, you know, here it is 20 years later. And we had these photos. I didn't even know we had them, you know? And I mean, you'd have to be the judge for yourself if you think it is. I think it is. I think it's real obvious. And I
would never say, that is a Sasquatch, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I would say if I wouldn't go, hey world, look at this. I got him. But
yeah,
you
no,
were
they're
there
too old.
the picture, and there is something there. So, and it did move because you showed the successive pictures. And I know how women take pictures of their little ones. Trust me.
Yeah.
And so that thing moved. Whatever it was moved.
Yeah, it did. It did move a couple of times, I think. And you can see, you know, I blew up the face and stuff, and I think you can see the nose and the eyes and the cone shaped head and all that. But it made sense to me because, you know, my son was little. He was probably laughing and, you know, talking in the high voice, and we know they're attracted to kids and women also. Right. And I wasn't down there. I kind of got my heart sunk when I saw those. I was like, oh my gosh, I started thinking about missing 411, you know?
Yeah.
Kids get snatched and stuff. And here my wife's down there with my son, who's 3. I'm up above because it was down a hill to get to the creek. I'm up there with her dad. I don't even remember, you know, so long ago. I don't know what I was doing, but my heart sunk when I saw those. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually got kind of emotional thinking that there was one that close. And I think what happened, I mean, honestly, is, and it validated, it's that exact spot, you know, where all those experiences happen. But I think they probably heard his voice. He was down there playing for a while, and they probably snuck down there to check him out or whatever. I mean, it's logical. So
and little kids are loud and rambunctious, and they're having lots of giggling and laughing while you're out in the woods. So
exactly. So you can, and I can tell your audience, and maybe some of them have already been there, but if you go to our WIBS page on Facebook, not the group, but we have a page. It's our blog page, I guess it's called. Mm-hmm. And you can see all that just has our original stuff. So all our encounters, all our reports, all our videos. I have those photos. I have all the photos we've been talking about, the hunting camp photos. And it really helps to put photos with these stories because it really makes it, you know, you realize how true and how serious it is. And then you can look at the pictures we just talked about of what I think was a Sasquatch behind my son, watching my son. I sent those to Grant, and he had quite a reaction to those. So some people have trouble seeing it, but it's not one of those blurry ones where you circle and put the eyes or anything. It's something dark standing there. I guess you can make your own judgment on it, but they're on our page, so you can go check those out.
I honestly, my opinion was I thought I was looking at a bear, and everybody go, well, a bear would have no. Brent Dill stood feet from one. Him and his girlfriend Jackie, and so it's
if you
but that I wasn't there, like I said. I just that it was so black that that's what I thought it was. No,
I understand it is black. But the only reason I don't think it was a bear is if you looked at the zoomed in pics that or the ones I zoomed up, there's no snout. It's just the flat nostrils and the eyes.
Yeah,
I can't see a snout there like a bear, but like I said, make your own.
I saw some greenery just right around that area, so I was kind of like, I can't really, I can't make a judgment where you need me as a witness in court. You know,
No, I hear you. I totally hear you. And yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. That I'm just saying that, hey, if people want to go check those out, they can, and you can make your own judgment. I wish we had better cameras back then, right? I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
But the cool thing is, I guess it's a cool story too, because I didn't even know I had, you know, my son was texting me back going, "Hey Dad, what's that behind me in the bushes?" I'm like, holy crap.
I wonder what would happen if a lot of people out there, you know, all of our grandmas and mothers and aunts and uncles took a lot of pictures back in the 70s and 80s and,
Yeah.
you know, back before the cell phones and the digital cameras, dig out a box. I've digging out some stuff when my mom passed away. I got lots of pictures and stuff. And I'm just mind boggled by some of the things in the background, you know, that I didn't realize there's a wild jackrabbit behind me in one shot. You know, I didn't know that. I had that, you know, shown pictures for years and years and years and years. I'm thinking, what? So yeah, that's weird. It's worth looking at.
Cool little. Yeah, definitely. You know, it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And so my son, it was his idea to form our group, WIBS, Washington Idaho Bigfoot Search. And the idea behind that was just to have a place where we were hoping people would come forward and give us their reports and encounters. And, you know, we'd be there to help them if they needed help or if they want us to come out and take a look. You know, that was the original idea behind it, but it kind of grew, got bigger than that. And it's kind of opened some doors. Obviously, it's when you get connected to the Bigfoot world, you can reach out to people, talk to people. And I've made a lot of good friends, had some doors open for me. Did a little filming for the Travel Channel here recently for a show coming up. You know, I'm not into that really, as far as I'm not looking to do that, but it was just an opportunity that came up. But it's really cool. I've met a lot of great friends. Grant, you know, I'm good friends with Rich Germeau. He's the co-founder of the Olympic Project. Right. Part of Dr. Melba Ketchum's study. Rich and I are pretty good buddies, and Tobe Johnson, and you know, yeah.
See,
so
we don't have to all have the same friends and like the same people to, you know, to agree on things or, you know, that type of stuff. Because, you know, there's a lot out there, but I will not go woo for a single second. I know that I follow deer where their tracks just disappear. I found one elk track before, you know, and you could, you know, they jump and they move and it's just weird. They don't always follow that dirt trail. So I don't think they disappear into portals and things like that. I'm not going to go that way. So.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just open-minded. Yeah, I agree. I'm not, I can't say that they do either. You know, I just want to learn, you know, I just want to.
Yeah. Same here.
It's a weird subject for sure.
Yeah. So what does your wife think about it?
Oh, she's cool. You know, she supports me and stuff. She's not into it like I am, but like I said, she grew up with all those stories from her dad. And so she's a believer. She doesn't want to see one. She doesn't like, if we go camping, she rarely goes camping. I got to get a camper. She won't sleep in a tent now, but she, you know, like I said, she said, "You're not making a call. You're not going to do it." You know, she's worried I'm going to get one close.
She won't do it because she was there when we got chased. So, but we had to graduate
because he made a call.
Because I did a call. So.
Yes.
You know, that's it, Jay, right there. It actually works. It doesn't always work, but I mean,
not in a positive way. It doesn't. But we graduated from camping in Jeeps and things like that. After that happened, finally, 5 years later, we've gone back to tents. With cots, so I'm not sleeping on the ground trying to get my old ass up if something happens. I want to be able to come right up and get
right out of bed.
Yeah, no, we do a lot of tent camping. One thing we like to do, Jay, is and this we've had a lot of success, and we've done this up in that Clearwater spot I was telling you about. We'll take a week off work. It's a whole week off, and we'll take our packs, you know, like a 60, 70 pound pack, and we'll go up that trail 2 miles, camp, set up camp, stay a night. The next day, go another 2 miles, camp. So you're going in like 4 or 5 or 6 miles, and then you're coming out, you know, over the course of like 5, 6 days. And, you know, when you get real remote like that, it's kind of cool because you're out there where no other people are. And if you do have stuff happen, you can rule out people, basically, you know, regular
Yeah,
people.
that's a gate. That's a gated thing that you can't lift the gate, right? That's one of those old.
No,
That's there permanently, right?
it's a permanent bolted gate. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's a piece of, you know, the road railing just bolted on railroad ties. So the thing is, not even the Forest Service guys can go up there unless you unbolt the gate. I can't imagine they do that. I don't think they want people in there, you know? So it's not one of those gates that has a lock where it swings open. No. So that's the end of the line, which is pretty cool. 'Cause
Kaija wants to know, can you please ask Nate how big that footprint is on the WIBS Facebook page? That is huge.
yeah. Yeah, so I found a real amazing print. That was it's kind of a weird deal. Again, I was hunting. This was quite a few years ago. I couldn't even tell you what year it was, but I would guess probably 5-6 years ago. Hunting in a different location than I talked about, but luckily I had my phone with me, my phone camera. It was just one print, but it was real. It must have been like late October, probably opening week. There was a lot of leaf litter everywhere, but it had rained the night before, so it was kind of muddy, like a soft mud or maybe a medium mud. And you know, I walked up this trail that was kind of like a corridor, a bunch of alders, and it kind of turned a corner, and it was kind of like the best way to describe it would be a cul-de-sac in the woods. It was all alders all the way around, kind of tucked way back up this hill.
Nice.
And I'd separated from my buddy Rob, and I found the print when I was coming out. I walked up through there, turned around, came back, and I must have missed it on the way up. But I mean, you can see all the toes. It's just one of those classic prints, and that's my foot on that pick next to that print, and I'm a size 9. I didn't have a measuring tape with me because I was hunting, but I imagine that's a good, I'm guessing 17-inch print. And you can check those pictures out. And
oh, I have. That's good. I'm glad people are going and checking that out. You gave that information out a little while, so that's great.
I put my foot next to it. I'm a size 9, so you can kind of judge the size of it. Again, I was hunting. It's weird how stuff happens sometimes when you're not expecting it. But I've learned to carry, you know, try to carry a little bit more gear with me. But when you're hunting, you don't want a big heavy sack with a bunch of stuff.
What if you do get an elk?
But I always try to have a camera, you know, at least I could take a picture or a video if something does happen. But gosh, yeah, I just want to learn more. It's such a weird subject and weird thing. Just hard to explain some of this stuff that happens.
It is. It is. And I don't like to, a lot of times I've been told throughout the last couple of years by certain people that I'm closed-minded because I won't go to that woo side. I've been to their conferences and stuff, and I walked out of there smacking myself in the side of the head, wondering what the hell was I doing in here. Met some good people. Tobe Johnson's a good guy. His girlfriend, wonderful, wonderful person. I bought her dad's book, and you know,
who's that, Jay? Who are you talking about?
Tobe Johnson and his girlfriend.
Oh, Tobe, yeah.
I bought her dad's book.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but I do have Tobe's new book. The thing is, I think what can happen, and I'm not saying Tobe's had a lot of paranormal stuff, but maybe that's not all directly connected to Sasquatch. I think there's different phenomenons out there, and maybe sometimes people conflate those.
Yes,
you know,
that's what I think.
And I'll be honest with you, I think there's other entities in the forest, not just Sasquatch. So, you know, maybe there's some crossover and people, you know, I don't know. I'm open-minded. That's all I can say. I'm not ruling everything out, or I'm not ruling things out. You know, I don't believe they step off of spaceships or anything like that. But I think they're a people. I think they're an ancient. I think they're an ancient people that have been here. You know, who knows, thousands of years. They're more like us. They're like ninjas of the forest. They have these abilities to hide, to move. They're big, right? They're 8, 9, 10 feet tall. You can see how fast they can move. I've got a video of one. It's unbelievable how fast it's moving. But yeah, you know, you hear about the people that watch them go up a steep hill, just like a deer, just moving fast.
That's what Kathy Strain does too. I mean, Kathy Strain's books are. She spent time with some of these tribes, and she wrote some very good books about. Not every tribe says they're half human, half ghost type of. You get tribes from all over the United States, Canada, and South America and you got like
Yeah.
one tribe says this, but most of the tribes here in the Pacific Northwest don't consider them. They consider them brothers, another tribe, and they also have,
Right.
according to their legends, they've married into these tribes, both Sasquatch into this tribe and
Uh-huh.
these women into their tribe. And that's documented stuff through the tribes itself, because it's not
Yeah.
on Caucasian history, but I kind of like to trust what some of the natives have to say about it.
Me too. I'm real interested in that, and I think we could gain a lot of knowledge from them for sure. And I think you get the most knowledge out of the encounters just listening to people's encounters. Myself, that's kind of what I really enjoy is hearing about all these different encounters. And there's also stories, Native American stories, of how they would come out of the mountains and steal children and women, and
Yep.
I'm sure there was crossbreeding going on and stuff like that. I mean, makes sense. So I'm with you. I'm just I'm not into the extreme woo either, Jay. I try to stay open-minded, but we don't all have to agree with each other. I mean, we don't really know what these things
Right.
are. Hopefully, maybe someday we will, but yeah. I mean, there's a couple camps. You got your ape gorilla camp, and then you got your woo, and there's somewhere in the middle, and I'm probably somewhere right in the middle. It's
I firmly believe that if this was an ape or a gorilla or something like that, we'd have had them in a
oh yeah.
in a zoo long time ago. And people bring up shit
Yeah.
like the panda and the mountain gorilla. These native countries where they live, they've always known they're there. It's what
Yes.
white man had to find out
Yes.
for himself. Otherwise, they're lying, which is crazy.
Right.
All that
And the
stuff
Native
comes out of Europe, so.
Yeah. And like we were saying earlier, the Native Americans knew they were there. I mean, they were considered them another tribe,
Right.
and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we're not out here to prove it to anybody. We're way past that. It's just we do this because we enjoy it, and we just kind of the search for truth, like we talked about, and kind of just do it for ourselves. But I mean, of course, if we get some evidence, we'll do it. If we could get some film or photos or whatever, but we're not out there like trying to get stuff to prove it to people. I could really care less what anybody thinks anymore.
See, that's where I'm at too. I don't need
Just
to prove it
kinda
to anybody. So
Yeah, I'm doing it for myself, and it's also something me and my son can do together, where it's a bonding thing. We're both really interested in it, and something we'll have lots of stories for our grandkids someday, and lots of photos, and the hunting camp story, and who knows what else by then. But yeah, they're out there. I mean, if you know kind of where they're at, and they're really all over. I mean, that, Jay.
yeah, yeah.
They're that's the thing people don't understand. I mean, most of society doesn't even believe in them, period. But
Right.
the people, even some of the people that believe in it, don't realize they're all over. I mean, we just moved to a new property north of where we lived before, and at our old house, I could walk out the front door and there's multiple peaks where there's encounters I could see from my house. And we moved up north, and there's multiple peaks over here where I can see where there's reports. I mean, and we're not even that far north, and you think about flying in a plane over the Northwest or British Columbia, how vast, how incredibly vast our forests are, and mountains with no access roads. I mean,
Right.
Priest Lake, where my father-in-law has the place on Priest, you can go up, all around Priest, but you go on the east side. So the furthest east side looking over in Idaho, and you go to the top of that peak and look over the side, and as far as the eye can see is forest and mountains, and there's no access to it. So, I hear these people say, oh, there's no way they could hide that good. I mean, it's so vast. I just shake my head and chuckle.
My good
Go
buddy Joe from Western New York Bigfoot also says people do their own investigations for their own reasons. Not everyone has the same agenda. That's true.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of, seems like there's a lot of infighting and stuff in this field, and I'm just not into it. I just kind of gravitate towards the guys I kind of think alike, and not just Bigfoot, hunting and stuff like that. But, I'm friendly with everyone, but, it's kind of where I'm at on it.
Well, you talked about how like the dark divide, what they call from Mount Rainier all the way to the Columbia River Gorge on the Washington side. That's called the Dark Divide, and that's one of the biggest, most vastly unexplored areas in the United States, and it's also unprotected. So that's it's an unbelievable place, and I recommend anybody out there to watch that movie, Dark Divide. It's very well done, and it's not one of those silly ass Bigfoot movies. It's well done. It's very Deborah Messing plays his wife, and it's just really well done. I recommend it to anyone. Get you some tissues too. So, but yeah, this is where we live, Nate, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. People from all over the United States and the world haven't got a clue unless you're from Russia or Canada. This Pacific Northwest, especially even up where you're at, man, it becomes, you can disappear. I could stand there while you're photographing me and take 20 steps and you won't see me.
Exactly. Yep. And it's like that. Yeah. This whole, we're in Northeast Washington, but Northwest Idaho, that whole upper, south of the Canadian border, going all the way across, even Montana, well, you can go all the way across the country, and it's vast like that along the border there. But I don't know if people really have it, maybe a lot of people do, but a sense of how vast it is up here, just the forest, and a lot of it you can't. I mean, there's places man has never stepped. I know that.
That's right.
There's plenty of places. You'd have to go in by helicopter or something. I mean, we can only hike so far, and a lot of it doesn't even have, quad trails and stuff like that. So, and, we found a lot of structures and symbols and weird stuff like that. I mean, we didn't even talk about that, but there's just a lot of weird things out there. And I think the longer you do this, you kind of learn what to look for, like how many times did you walk by stuff before you were aware of this?
Yeah.
Even being a hunter, because you're just not focused on it. Once you know they're real.
As a hunter, you're not checking the trees.
Yeah, so, good call. And you're just, now that I'm aware of it, obviously, you look for more things, and you find more things because you're looking for it. You don't just have tunnel vision down the trail and stuff. So, it's pretty fun.
Well, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to her and I, when that tree was taken down, when I was there by myself, it was taken. She found the footage of it yesterday. Thank God, going through all the stuff we have on computers. She found that. We had horrible phones back then, back in 2016. Yeah. I had a bad phone. She did too. So, we're going.
The film's all blurry.
I'm going to share that with a few people. We're going to try to clean it up a little bit, but that looked exactly like an A, but it wasn't like the capital A like this. It was like this, and then it came across, and it was an uprooted tree put over the top to make the A from a tree about that big around that was pushed from the ground over. And so you can see that all of this is sprayed up like this, and this tree is completely over. And then 15 or so feet up, it's broken and twisted back, and then that other one's pulled out of the ground and laid across it. Now, we found that not only that day, but in the next year when we went up, we found them in tiny ones off trail on the ground.
Yeah,
we found them beside the trail, standing straight up and down with little trees that like windblown and stuff like that, and been years with no limbs. We found those multiple times, and we had our sister-in-law and our brother-in-law there, and the kids and everything. I don't know what to say about them, so I don't mention it a lot, because I see people say, "Oh, this one means this one." Nobody knows what they mean. Yeah. Nobody knows.
I know.
One guy told me that one meant welcome. I'm welcome. They chased me around. Welcome.
Yeah.
Well,
here's another one for your viewers to check out on our Wibs page. We found a symbol. I call it an asterisk symbol. It looks like an asterisk, right? Way up in that area in the North Fork of the Clearwater. This was a couple summers ago, and I had been talking to Rich Germeau like a few weeks before this, leading up to when we found this. And when I got back from our trip, I sent him these photos, and he goes, "Hey, you need to go check out this video I just filmed by my house with Tobe." And so I did, and all of a sudden in their video they have the same asterisk symbol, and I did screenshots of their video and put them side by side with ours, and they're exactly the same. What it means, I don't know, but that'd be something to check out. They're really cool photos, especially when you compare them. Ours was bigger, theirs was smaller, but they're that classic asterisk with the stick going through the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I haven't seen them personally, but I saw them on yours. The only thing I've ever found is we were at a place one time where there was a kind of a little bar, like where the water was running through, and on this clay bar was probably 20 symbols. I mean, I still think humans did it. They were literally some kind of, they were done with broken sticks, and I mean they were laid out in exact, and it had to be. I just can't give myself over to saying that a Sasquatch went in there and did that. I don't know. It was too.
I guess the more remote you are, the better chances of it being like a Sasquatch. Like
Right.
where we found our asterisk symbol was miles in to that spot I was telling you about. So, I mean, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't. I can't imagine humans going in there, sitting there, and building that thing. And we found little baby alder bushes all woven together. Like you could picture something just sitting down and maybe being bored and just weaving them all together. Just weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, we have found a few trees up here that you have a tree, and then there's one going like this in between them. And then one more will be like that, but sticking up. Now, I do go with a lot of, I will say that we have a lot of storm up here, especially the closer you get up to the elk camps in Blue Lake. I mean, I could show you what most people around the Bigfoot world would call everything is a structure or whatever. These things are all natural, wind blown, hurricane force winds up here, snow, all that stuff. But these ones that are like that, I have to scratch my head and think,
the ones that seem to be woven together, those are the ones that are real interesting to me. And some of the bigger structures where it looks like you would have had to like bend a tree down to get one in, and then bend another tree to, something that would take tremendous strength. Stuff like that I look at as possible, Sasquatch activity. But you're right. A lot of it you can rule out as natural, where trees just fall together in a weird shape or something.
When you find rock piles, you can find rock piles where it would take like 3 full-grown men or not at all to stack these things, and they're not even. They're stacked up like 3 or 4 feet high, but they're so heavy. I went to a place where me and 4 other guys tried to lift just one of them. We couldn't do it, and that's back when I was in my prime. Yeah. So,
one thing we did find really, really strange in a very remote spot one time was there was a big flat rock on the ground. I mean, a huge rock, and then a smaller rock. And then it looked like something had crushed up rock into a pile of sand, like something sat there and crushed rock up, and then left the rock sitting there. And that was really strange. It was a super remote spot, stuff like that. Just weird things, that are kind of hard to explain.
Well,
if they're out, go ahead.
Her and I, the year after our encounter, we went across the street and camped in that spot with our grandson and our niece and our nephew, and there was before we did that, her and I went there during the just early spring, and we started walking down through this, and we started seeing all these pine limbs, and then there'd be a little alder like this, and then a big pine limb like right laying there, and then another, and then a big pine limb, and there was no pine trees in that area at all, and then it hit us as we're walking down. All of a sudden, we're going to be boxed in. We were like, she's the one who said, "This is a trap."
Oh yeah.
I started looking around, and go, "Oh shit, it is." It was unbelievable. It was set up just like somebody was, would try to trap deer into something. It was unbelievable, and these limbs were huge. They were huge. So
right, yeah, and that's another thing you can look for is, when trees are brought in from another area and they're woven together like that.
Yeah.
And you can't find the base there. You look for the source of the tree and there's nothing around there, but you walk 20, 30 yards this way and you find a snapped off stump and
Right.
it matches up
Right.
with the tree that's over here. And these are, like you said, some of them are big trees. A normal man's not, one man's not going to do it. So just a lot of stuff. Yeah. Make you scratch your head
Yeah.
and wonder. But I mean, obviously they're out there and they've got a lot of time on their hands. So I'm sure they're doing
Yeah.
some of this stuff.
Proud to have
So-
Thomas Steenberg in the chat tonight. Welcome, Thomas. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Thomas.
He's the giant whose shoulders we all stand on now, as far as I'm concerned. That's
Yeah,
how I
there's-
look at him.
A lot of good researchers out there for sure. We're more like I said earlier, Jay. We're just kind of we just really enjoy it, and we're just kind of looking for answers for ourselves. And it's more, it really is kind of at this point kind of a hobby. I mean, just something we enjoy. We're not out there to prove it.
Yeah.
So
I think we've got 120 minutes here, folks. If you don't have, I would like to know if anybody's got any questions for Nate before we let him go. Anyone at all? It's time to do. Dun, 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 dun. I would like to thank you personally, Nate, for coming on. Sorry about it. Man, how long did we go? 7 or 8 minutes or 10 minutes?
it wasn't. Yeah,
We
it wasn't
realized-
that.
Oh my God! Talk about
Hey,
it.
that's not the first time. Hey, and I understand. Not a big deal. No, I appreciate you asking me to come on. Consider you guys friends, and it's kind of cool to be your first guest. So I really appreciate it.
I was very
Yeah,
honored.
thanks
Oh,
for coming on.
so-
It's very interesting.
there is a question. Thank you, Tristan. Kaiju Ninja. What does Nate think of Dog Man?
Man, that's yeah. I don't know. I hesitate to tell the story because I'm not sure what I saw. I saw something really weird. I'll just tell it.
Tell me.
I can't say what it was. All I can say is it looked wolf-like, but it had really high shoulders like a hyena. This was up at North Skookum Lake, way up north here in Washington State. Kind of a high mountain lake up there, pretty remote area. It was dusk. We were in my side-by-side at the time. We like to go explore it, at night around. We have GPS, so we'll just take off, kind of get lost, and then follow our GPS back. It's a good way to find new locations, new high mountain lakes and stuff like that. But we were on this kind of dark. It was kind of dusky dark, and heading down this old skidder trail, and this big black thing went right in front of us. Now we have wolf and bear and everything, obviously, and this thing had the head of a wolf, but it had really high shoulders and it was really tall, and then the back went down like a hyena, really low. I mean, that's what it's burnt into my brain, and it ran right in front of us. Got a pretty good look at it. It was moving pretty fast and went down this deep dark draw because we went up there to where it crossed and parked the rig, and I jumped out to try to see if I could get another look at it. It was too thick. It was gone, but I guess it could have been a wolf, but I'm being honest with you guys. It just was really weird.
Was it
And
on
there
4
have
feet
been-
or 4 legs?
It was on all fours. And I've seen wolf before, but this thing had really high shoulders like a hyena, and then the butt went down. It just looked really weird to me, and I kind of got an eerie feeling, maybe just because it looked so weird. But there has been a couple Dogman reports up here in this area, believe it or not, that people said it looked like it had like something big like a Sasquatch, but it had like a wolf head. So there's a couple reports floating around up here in this area. That's about all I know. I know it kind of creeps me out. The Dogman thing, to me, it seems like it might be something evil too to it, because a lot of people that see them say they feel that extreme dread when they see one. So, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research. I have buddies that, Nick Valente, Jody Cook, North American Dogman Project and stuff. I kind of follow that on the peripheral. It's not really my wheelhouse.
Yeah, same here. I'm like,
we talked about earlier that there, I definitely believe there's other entities, other things in our forests that we don't know about. We don't understand. So, and there's been lots of reports of those, it sounds goofy. The word Dogman sounds goofy. Werewolf, whatever, people have seen them though. They're out there, especially like down in Texas and back east and up north by Minnesota and up by the border there and stuff. There's been a lot of, just like Sasquatch, a lot of real credible people, law enforcement officers, you name it, people that have seen them. So, it's hard to rule it out. They might be out there.
Thomas Steenberg, thank you for asking this question, Thomas. Nate, have any of these structures been found where, in your opinion, no people have been for some time?
Yeah, especially that asterisk symbol I was telling you about. And Thomas can find that on our WIBS page there. If you scroll down, you don't have to spend a lot of time on the WIBS page because, I mean, there's quite a bit of stuff there, but it's not like a group where you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of things. It doesn't take you that long to find all our stuff if you scroll down. But look for the asterisk symbol that we found, and then you'll find Rich Germo's there too. And but that was a real remote spot. I guess that's where I was going with this. That was that spot where the hunters went in on horseback. It was miles in, probably 4 or 5 miles in, where I found that. And it was on a hillside. It was off trail. We decided to hike up this hillside. Can't remember why we decided to do that, just to kind of explore. And
Right.
my brother-in-law, Chris, spotted that on our way down. It was off to our left, kind of tucked under some trees. And, it was pretty tall, probably. It was a big structure, maybe 3 feet tall. But it's a clear asterisk, you can go check that out. And that was super remote. So that one's kind of hard to explain. I can't see anybody going in there and sitting up there on the hillside and making that. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah.
My buddy Joe from Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group says, I can't put stock in a bipedal wolf. I can't either. When it comes to any kind of, you can't put it together the way it's been described. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? As far as you can't have the way people describe them as if it's a dog that is a giant dog standing straight up and down with the legs still bent the same way of a dog, the bottom legs.
Yeah.
You see how dogs act in the circus when they make them walk. There's no way this thing can survive as a walking around on 2 legs. It's just, for me, until that wonderful lady wrote that book, Brer Road or whatever that was, no one ever even talked about these. So, I mean, there you go. Beast of Brer Road, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas.
My buddy Nick Valente, he had an encounter. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are aware of his encounter. He's ex police officer, special operator. This he's a legit dude. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you can look that up. It's Nick Valente. Look up his encounter, but he saw the thing over the top of a deer. He thought it was a human at first. And this thing was leaned over eating this deer, and it stood up, and it was a wolf that stood up on 2 legs. I mean, that's what it's coming straight from him. And I believe Nick, he's a legit guy. And it's hard to wrap your head around it for sure. I get that. But there's something out there that people are seeing that have a snout of like a dog.
But I think that Sasquatch could possibly, the way we are variant as human beings, I think that possibly the Sasquatch, some of them could have, because my friend,
more of a,
right. And I think that's what people are seeing, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, no, you might be right. It's definitely weird, and it's kind of out there, but a lot of people have seen them that say that's what they look like.
You notice it's always a dog man, though, whereas Sasquatch, what we saw was a female. Okay.
Yeah.
What I saw. I hear a lot they're females or males and all that. With dog man, it's always dog man. So they must be breeding. They must, do they have litters? Yeah. I mean, how does this?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for. Beyond saying I saw it, can you help me out with how are they breeding? Are they having puppies, or what would dog puppies, or what would you call man puppies?
Maybe these things are more supernatural. I don't know.
Could be.
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, but on this, like I said, it's not my wheelhouse. But I know I've heard a lot of encounters, and I have, like I said, my friend Nick, he had a pretty terrifying encounter. Yeah. So people should.
I've been told by very, 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 very credible people that they saw one of these things. So it's just hard for me to swallow, but I'm not going to sit here and call people liar. I don't have the evidence to call you a liar. So
no, I hear you, Jay. I hear you 100%. Yep. It's a weird deal. So
if there's no more questions, I want to quickly thank, if you don't mind, Brent Dill, Nikki, Pat Turner, Steve Anderson, Sean, Cornell, and JC, and most of all, Leon. thank you guys for helping me get through what we went through and finding the courage to do this. And I also would like to thank you again for being our guest. Our guest Thursday, tune in on Thursday. We're going to have Alexander Petikov, and he is just put out the Olympic Bigfoot documentary. He does a lot of documentaries with Seth Breedlove, and he has a podcast called Sasquatch Out of the Shadows. Our guest 2 Thursdays from now will be Mr. Kaiju Ninja, Tristan Yolton, and he's a friend of mine that while we were at Bumping Lake researching, he came in, introduced himself, and we shared some fellowship and met his dad and all that. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming on in 2 weeks. So it'd be a pleasure to have him on, and I hope you guys tune in. Sorry about the delay tonight, Nate. I just feel awful about that. This is all new to us, and so we're gonna make improvements between now and then. But I'd like to have you back, Nate, because there's still a lot more that you have to say. So and
you sound like you have endless stories. So
we could do it again down the road for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on, guys. I really do. Thank you.
And I want everyone please to watch The Dark Divide, because we are talking to Robert Michael Pyle right now, and he said he will come on this podcast in the new year, very soon in the new year. We've been talking with him for a couple of days. This is very exciting for me because this is a wonderful story, and I really hope that you guys watch it and understand what a Guggenheim is and those types of things. This is incredible. So I really thank you guys for the support and watching. Good night.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Good to see you guys. Talk soon. Bye-bye.